High Elf Army Book Review. You guys asked for them, I'll do them. Okay, so we're start off with the High Elf book. I'm going to review the book, review the army. I'm going to talk about things, the power level, and what you want to buy if you want to buy a High Elf army. Though I don't believe you can actually purchase anything from this book anymore. Maybe the White Lines. No, maybe not even them. Anyways, so if you want to start a High Elf army for Warhammer Fantasy, you're probably buying all your miniatures second hand. So I think I'm just going to start off with the special rules page of this book and cover the special rules. So army special rules, we're going to start off with martial prowess. We got Valor of Ages. I can't pronounce this. Lilith's Blessing. We have Fireborn, Arrows of Isha, Armory with Wand will have special weapons or gear that is unique to the High Elves. So if you're going to play High Elf army, it's a very martial, medium to good armor with good shooting if you want it, and very powerful magic. You typically lean towards a magic build when you play High Elves, and a melee build in 8th edition, and not so much cavalry anymore because it is 8th edition, and this book is written for 8th, and cavalry is no longer king. Okay, so martial prowess special rules. High Elf models with this special rule can make supportive attacks in 1 extra rank than normal. This is commutative with any other special rules that allow a unit to fight in extra ranks. In addition, when shooting all elf models with the special rule, fire in 1 more rank than normal. And then there's rules interactions with volley fire, but I think that's pretty straightforward. So you're shooting 1 extra rank than normal, you're fighting in 1 extra rank than normal. So the High Elves had a roundabout way had that special rule for a long time, like many years. Is a citizen levy. It only applied to archers, obviously, and spearmen. But now everybody gets it, which is really good. Their Valor of Ages special rule. Move my mic around. When fighting Dark Elves, you reroll failed Panic, Fear, and Terror tests. Not bad. Dark Elves get hatred against High Elves, which is significantly better. Because both these armies have always strikes first, which we'll get to in a moment, which will end up canceling each other out, but the hatred gives the Dark Elves an edge over the High Elves when they're fighting each other. And then Lilith's Blessing, +1 to all attempts to cast magic from the lore of High Magic. Now, the lore of High Magic isn't terrible, we will cover it in this book, but it's typically not the lore you want to use if you're coming from a competitive standpoint, or if you want to make a little stronger of a list. It's not it's not a bad excuse me, lore, but it doesn't work well with High Elves. Like, it's almost not like other armies would love to have it. Excuse me. It doesn't complement High Elves as much as the Lore of Life or the Lore of Shadows already does. Fireborn is another special rule. You're going to see this on Dragon Armor, and the Dragon Princes is a cavalry unit. Used to give them they were immune to all fire-based attacks, which obviously it doesn't make sense in the game, so now it's the 2-up ward save against fire-based attacks, and attacks for the wounds caused by attacks with the flaming attack special rule. And Arrows of Isha is a model or a special rule you've never ever seen me use, because they are arrows used by the Sisters of... Oh, I can't remember what they're called. I've never owned this unit. I actually did buy them. I actually have a box right behind me. Well, in front of me. In my closet that I've never gotten around to assembling. What are they called? They're called the Sisters of Avelorn. They have these special arrows that have additional -1 to armor save against models with force of destruction. So shooting attacks made by model who is attacking with a weapon that has a special rule are magical, so they're magical. And if the target is forces of destruction, additional -1 to their armor save. We got for the armor, we have Ithamar Barding. High Elven Steeds have a 9-inch move, and a typical mounted model with heavy armor and barding lowers the movement value of the unit by 1. So an Empire Knight with heavy armor on a horse with barding is going to go from movement 8 to movement 7. Now, Hyles, their elven steeds, are movement 9, and when they have Ithamar barding, it is not reduced to 8. So they are significantly faster than their human counterparts. Now, as far as I can remember, there's only one other army or faction in the game that has another roundabout ability. The Bretonnians have pure breed war horses, which ignore the penalty for barding, so they stay movement 8. But otherwise, you have the fastest heavy cavalry in the game. Dragon armor. Again, it's armor limited to pretty much characters and Dragon Princes of Caledor. It's a 5-up armor like you'd expect from heavy armor. It gives them a 6-up ward save and the Fireborn special rule. That Fireborn special rule we already discussed is the ignore wounds from flame attacks. 2+. Sorry, a 2-up ward save. You gotta choose your words carefully in a world with 1,000 different types of rules. We got Bows of Avelorn. Again, these are weapons you're only going to see on the Sisters of Avelorn. They are 24 range, strength 4, with the Volley Fire special rule, the Flaming Attack special rule, and the Arrows of Isha special rules that we've already discussed. And then we have the Lion Cloak, models with the Lion Cloak, +2 to the armor save against non-magical missile weapons. You see these on White Lions, Lion Chariots, and some characters. Okay, so we covered the army special rules and some of the special equipment. We'll probably discuss the equipment again as we come up to units that are more relevant or actually relevant with them. And then let's go on to the models. So we're going to start with the Commanders of Ulthuan. We have the Princes. The Princes and the Noble. So elves have some pretty nice stats. Elven Prince, base movement 5 for an elf. Pretty standard. An Elven Prince has weapon skill and ballistic skill of 7, which is really good. You're not going to be beat by much other than maybe a vampire. Strength 4 and toughness 3. So for years, we've always seen Elven characters toughness 4. We've always seen characters across the board toughness 4. And I think it was 6th or 7th edition. It might have been 6th, but it could have been 7th. I think it was 7th actually. Not positive. They made a decision to keep them at toughness 3 to represent they're a little more frail than the thicker races of the old world. It's not that big of a what's the word I'm looking for? It's not that bad of a negative. It's actually it does come up a lot, but you know, toughness 3 you can get by. Strength 5 is when you want to choose. Sorry, I'm having this weird issue. So typically, characters, any weapon that's going to threaten a character is going to wound them on 2s anyway. You're going to get strength 6 or higher. This toughness 3 thing only really applies, in my opinion, or something you need to worry about is when you're going to go in after a big horde of strength 3 infantry. They're wounding on 4s where they'd be wounding other characters on 3s. But you're going to gain the initiative 8. Always strikes first. Actually, we didn't discuss that. Is there a missing page? Just printed on. I figured. Oh yeah, because always strikes first is in the main rule book, which I also got out. So you have your Elven Prince with initiative 8 and always strikes first. It's really it's solid. You're almost always going to be hitting on 3s, re-rolling. Almost always. The problem with this character is he is, I think, if I remember correctly, base 140 points. Let's see. You know, it's been a while since I made a list without Battle Scribe. I forget how points are on this page. Okay. A lot of named characters. I'll probably go. Yeah, he's base 140 points. He will give you that leadership 10, but I just find after you buy him equipment, even a sword, a horse or whatever, anything to keep him alive, and a weapon to put out some damage, he's really expensive point wise, to the point where I don't really see a whole lot of value in bringing the Prince. Now, if you want to talk about mounting him on Dragon, Hyles have 3 levels of Dragon, Sun Star, and Sun, Moon, and Star. It could be worth it. Like a 390 point Star Dragon, you don't need a whole lot of magic items on the Prince itself. Maybe something to keep him alive, a ward save, and the Dragon itself will do a lot of work. Now that's a big point sink, and we all know monsters don't do that well in Warhammer Fantasy 8th Edition. So it's a fun thing to use now and then. I've had a dragon, sorry, I've had a prince on a dragon for years. I've used them in hundreds of battles twice, maybe 3 times. I can't even count. So he's a big point sink, often not worth it. We got the Archmage next. This year, Lord level Mage is my standard go-to for a general. You're only leadership 9. Not that bad. It's humans max out at 9 as it is, right? Leadership 9 ain't terrible, and you have Elven stats, which are move 5, weapon skill, ballistic skill 4, strength toughness 3, 3 wounds, initiative 5, 1 attack. The Archmage, excuse me, the Archmage can take all the lores of magic, all 8 from the main rulebook, and high magic. It can be mounted on a star, moon, and sun dragon. It can also be on a chariot or a great eagle. A solid choice for my general every time. When you're playing high elves, you want, because your models are typically high in points and relatively frail, you want magic to support and augment them. You can argue you can play a game, even semi-competitive, of Warhammer Fantasy with just a level 2 mage or no mage and a little bit of magic defense. When you're playing high elves, there's no real reason to not bring your mage. You want to bring this level 4 Archmage in your list as a standard. Now, of course, you don't want it all the time because you want to try different things. But like when you're talking about your standard list, this is the first thing I add to my list when I'm making a list. There is another go-to, but we'll get to that. We'll cover the remaining lords. We have the Anointed of Assyrian. It is basically a Phoenix Guard character, Lord level character. Only ballistic skill 6, you don't care. Still initiative 8, only 3 attacks where the Prince has 4. And his points, he's 210 base. He can be mounted on the giant Phoenix, as a mount. We'll cover them. They are actually quite good. I don't really see a lot of value, again, to bringing a character on a monster in a typical semi-competitive game. He just tend to die too easy. However, this guy will come up with his own. He comes to the game with his own ward save with the Witness to Destiny. He knows the moment he's going to die. He's a 4-up ward save. He has fear built in. And he comes with magic resistance too. He's actually a solid character. He's high, again, high in points. But he is great to stick in a horde with. If you're gonna put all your eggs in one basket, he is not a terrible model to bring in with you, because I believe the Blessing of Assyrian, he hands out a. I was going to go double check this so I don't say anything correctly. I haven't played this model in a while. I believe he hands a 6-up ward save to the unit he is with, and then he's also going to bring a 2-up. Magic resistance 2. Yes, so he's gonna bring him to a unit. He's gonna give him that 6-up ward save. You're gonna have the immune to psychology rule add to the unit as well. He is solid. He is very solid. He's not that killy. He relatively defensible. High in points, but he brings a lot. So just having him in the unit, you know you're gonna have a 4-up ward save against magic spells, not magic. 4-up ward save against spells because the magic resistance 2. And then if you do want to play with the lore of high magic, he's not terrible because the lore attribute and the lore of high magic does work quite well off this guy, and we will cover that when we get to that. So this book is, like I said, 8 or 9 years old. It's almost 9 years old. It's not laid out great. You're gonna have to flip back and forth to cover everything in order. The next character, we have the Loremasters of Hoeth. I believe a lot of people like to pronounce it Hoeth. I believe it's Hoeth though. Anyways, he is your Swordmaster character. He is just a great weapon, heavy armor wielding, level 2 mage. But he is the original Loremaster before Loremaster was a thing for everybody. So he does not generate his spells, but instead he knows the 8 signature spells from the what's the book called? The Warhammer Battle Rulebook, whatever it's called. So the 8 basic lores in the rulebook, he knows the signature spells. That is so good. Slan from the Lizardman book can also do the same thing, and they're level 4. They do very well with it. You need a little machine gun character that just tosses out all these d6 damage spells. It's very good. He can do it as well. He comes in at a hefty 230 point cost, which is not cheap, but you know, I whenever I brought him, I tend to give him the Armour Silvered Steel from the rule book, giving that 2-up armor save, and then I give him the Book of Hoeth, which it's a magic item that allows you to reroll 1 of your dice when casting a spell. It does mitigate his level 2 quite a bit. If he was any cheaper, much like the Anointed of Assyrian, he'd be like an auto-include in every list. Like, these are 2 expensive characters, over 200 points a piece. If they were cheaper, you would have them all the time. But 2 very solid characters with a lot of utility. Okay, next we got your Noble, your standard Prince. 1 weapon skill less than your Prince, actually. He's a little 1 step down from a Prince. But, like, you have to have one in your army. You have to have one with the Battle Standard Bearer. You need to reroll leadership tests, psychology tests, panic tests. You need this Battle Standard Bearer. Now, you're going to have leadership 8-9 across the board, but elf units are expensive. You cannot afford to lose one from a panic. If you are playing 8th edition and you are not bringing a BSB, you're doing yourself a disservice. I have a standard magic item loadout. I kind of figured works the best with him. Gives him the defense and the punch he needs. But we'll cover that when we get to magic items. Next, we got your Mage, your standard level 2 Mage. Not a whole lot to talk about that's different from the Archmage. Just your level 2 version of them. We also have a special mage in Hiles called the Dragon Mage of Caledor. They are fire mages, so they know the lore of fire, and they are mounted on sun dragons. These are the lesser dragons. They're still very good. They're just not that expensive dragon-wise. This guy on his dragon is 350 points for a hero level character. He's only level 8. He's only level 1. You can spend another 35 points to get him to level 2. He's a mage that can take dragon armor, which is not bad because it's a heavy armor. And he's mounted, so you have a 4-up armor save. Which really allows him to shrug off. I apologize for the coughing. Which really allows him to shrug off a lot of those missile attacks. Like half the missiles coming in, so long as they're not crossbows, you're just going to shrug them off. And got the Reckless Special Rule in the Warrior Mage. I'm going to go back and check that. I've never owned one of these. This is a model I've always thought I should get, or just for the sole purpose of painting. It's not going to be in your competitive list. It's just not. Monsters just never tend to make it. But I can see them being a lot of fun. Sorry, there will be no editing in this video. It'll also take me too long to create it. So you have to bear with me as I flip to the page where I find this Dragon Mage. I believe he's with the Caledor section. But again, like I said earlier, this book, I don't like the way this book is laid out. It is my one negative. We've seen previously books kind of laid out like if you go from the first unit to talk about is generally your lords. You're gonna go through all your lords, and then you're gonna go through your troop, and then your special and so on, and then name characters at the end. That's not how they lay out this book. They put all like the white line stuff together, the Caledor stuff together. Like for example, we got a page here called the Sons of Caledor, and that's where we're going to read about the Dragon Princes of Caledor. It's a special heavy cavalry unit, but he's also from Caledor, so his rules there. So this hero is on this page here. The Reckless is he has +2 to bonus to cast spells from the Lore of Fire, and it's cumulative with any other bonuses, but never receives any bonuses of any other kind to dispel attempts, which is reasonable. So if you make him level 1, he's casting spells from the Lore of Fire. It's +3. You're probably gonna make him level 2, and he's casting his Lore of Fire spells, which I think is actually fantastic lore. It's not a lore that helps Hiles that much. Again, Shadow and High does it better, but it's one of my favorite lores. Actually, all 8 of them are pretty good, but the Lore of Fire is quite good. And the Warrior Mage special rule, the first spell he generates from Lore of Fire will always be the Flaming Sword of Ruin, which is actually a fantastic spell. So if I had this model, you'd see him in a lot more bat reps. You know what? Right now, I'm gonna go on to Games Workshop and check if you can still purchase. No, there's no way. Order. No. Okay, yeah. Can't get this guy anymore. You know, if anybody has one unbuilt for sale, or at least unpainted for sale, send me a message. I mean, it'd be nice to throw these in the back reps once in a while. Moving on. We're gonna go back past all this beautiful artwork. I've always loved tiles. And we're gonna talk about the Ellyrian Sea Helm. It is another Lord level character that, a hero level character that can be your BSB, or he can ride around in one of those flying chariots we'll talk about. But he has a pretty solid special rule if he's joining a unit of infantry Sea Guard. Instead of standing and shooting, I want to tell you exactly what it's called and not try to explain it from memory. Maybe I should have like put a bunch of tabs in this book so I can jump back and forth all over the place to finish Ellyrian. So he has a rule called the naval discipline. If a unit containing at least one Sea Helm is successfully charged during the movement phase, it can attempt to change formation immediately after your opponent has moved all its charging units. To do so, the unit must take a leadership test. If the test is passed, the Sea Helm unit can immediately make a combat reform as described on page 55 of the Warhammer rulebook. If the test has failed, the unit cannot make a combat reform. A unit cannot use the naval discipline rule if it made the flee or stand and shoot reaction this turn. See, that is unfortunately, I think, a big mistake from Games Workshop. I'll close this off because the website's distracting me. I think that was such a cool idea. So you can take a horde of Sea Guard, go 10 wide, maybe 4 deep, and you're gonna fire in 3 full ranks because of martial prowess, and then because of volley fire, you're gonna fire half the next rank, and you can stay there shooting every turn if you want to go on a shooting focus list. And when your opponent gets to them, they do a combat reform, and then they reform 5 wide and deep, fight with their spears in 5 ranks essentially, and just grind on the opponent that way with their always strikes first. Now, it's really unfortunate that you can't stand and shoot on a unit that wants to stand and shoot when charged. And then combat reform, I don't think it would have been too powerful if they allowed you to do both. Because this is not a cheap character with only 2 wounds, and you without magic items is a terrible save. You can be very easily focused down. And because you only have so many points, everything's expensive in this book point wise. You got to allocate your points wisely. So this guy's almost certainly going to be your BSB. You can't afford to put too many points in characters with Isles because that'll be half your army. So that one's a little unfortunate. I've done it in a few back reps years ago. It's not great, but I love the lore of it. The what they were going for, I think, is absolutely perfect. Let's move on to our core units. Now, core section is where you want to spend the bulk of your points. When you're building a fantasy army, if you spend 1,000 points on your core, in a 2,000 point game I'm talking about, if you spend 1,000 of those points on your core units, you have, in my opinion, a very thematic, very nice looking, very stereotypical army. It works for any army. If you spend 1,000 points in Bretonnian core, that's a Bretonnian army. If you spend 1,000 points in Orc core, you got a bunch of orcs and goblins. If you don't spend 1,000 points in core, your more specialized army is a little. It starts to feel like a section of an army. Not a lot of armies ever want to really do that though. It'll always be weaker if you make your army look super. I don't know the word I'm looking for here. We've all seen Lord of the Rings with vast, just tons of elves just standing in a line, spinning their swords up and shooting bows. You're not going to have that on the tabletop, unfortunately. You want to spend the minimum on core when we're talking from a competitive standpoint. Now, it's not as restrictive as, say, Vampire Counts. Vampire Counts is another very powerful faction. They literally want to spend the exact minimum. They want to spend no more than 500 points on core. You're kind of doing the same thing with Isles. You don't want to spend a whole lot of points on core unless you're just playing a narrative or fluffy type thing. Because your Spearmen, while they aren't terrible, you have better fighters. So your Spearman, you're looking at 9 points a model. You have the standard elf stat. We'll talk about that one more time. We'll move on from the standard elf stat. So your standard elf stat is a 5-inch move, so that's above average. Weapon skill and ballistic skill 4, again, that's above average. Strength and toughness 3, that's your average. 1 wound, obviously. Initiative 5, which is above average. 1 attack, and leadership 8, which is above average. So you have solid above average stats across the board. So you got to pay the points for it, obviously. And then when you mix in the fact that you have martial prowess and always strikes first, you're fighting in 1 more rank than your opponent normally, and you're either striking first, re-rolling, or no, you're almost always re-rolling. You're always fighting like a character or super elite units. Like even your basic Spearmen against most units in this game are going to be re-rolling to hit. So it sounds like it's a pretty decent bargain, right? Again, you're not going to pay too much for a block of 25 Spearmen, which I've used numerous times. You go up to 50. Now the thing with martial prowess and spears, because you can't take swords as your basic equipment, you almost want to have 50 in a unit if you're going horde. Because if you're already going to fight in 3 ranks, and then you're going to fight in 2 ranks because it's Warhammer. You're going to fight in 3 ranks as your horde. You're going to fight in 4 ranks because you're martial prowess and you fight in an extra rank. And then because you have spears and you got to charge, you want to fight in 5 ranks. So you really want to use 50 models in your Spearman horde to make full use of all your attacks. If they had a option to not have spears and just have swords, I think the unit would have been significantly better. You don't feel the need to make it a 50-man unit. The 40-man feels more than fine. And the 6-up ward save from the parry save, is significantly better than the +1 more strength 3 attack. Though there are some spells that make those strength 3 attacks quite useful. I just think this unit would have been better if they were allowed to have swords, but you can't have everything. It is a very powerful faction as it is. They come with your standard spear, light armor, and shield. 1 unit in your army of Spearmen can have a magic standard worth up to 25 points. Next we have your archers. They are 10 points a model. They come with a longbow and a hand weapon, no armor. You can purchase armor, light armor, I believe for 1 point. I wouldn't bother. I like units of 15 to 18 because they fire in 3 ranks. With the musician, I would never bring an archer unit without a musician. You need the ability to swift reform, to turn and deal with chaff and flanking units to fire off your bows. And one thing that's so great about this unit is 15 archers, if they have to go charge into somebody's flank, they're going to help. You're going to have 15 attacks with their weapon skill 4, hitting most basic troops on 3s, but who cares? They're going to hit everything on 4s other than like demon, right? Re-rolling because it always strikes first. They're actually going to help you in the flank. There's not many other archer units that I would use as a supporting combat unit to charge into somebody's flank that I wouldn't be worried that I'm gonna end up giving more casualties than I gain, because charging somebody's flank, you're gonna get the charge bonus, you're gonna get the flank bonus. If you have 15 of them, you're probably gonna get at least +1 to your rank bonus, but that's not ever gonna be an issue because your main fighting force is usually giving you your rank bonus. So you're just getting the +2, right? You're getting your charge and flank bonus from the archers attacking the side. Now, anybody else's small archer unit, Empire archer units, even Wood Elf guys, they're going to maybe do a couple of wounds to the enemy they charged, but then they're going to take a couple, or they're probably going to take 4 and negate your bonuses for charging. When you're fighting in 3 ranks and you're re-rolling to hit, you typically, unless you're fighting in something that's super defensive, you're typically adding more to the combat than you are taking away by your own casualties. So I found this archer unit is a good way to spend points on core. Next, we have the Sea Guard. They are an 11-point model, so 2 points per model more than a Spearman, but they trade their shield for a bow. Not a longbow, just a bow. They can purchase shields for 1 point per model, and you're always going to do that. So you're looking at 3 points per model over a Spearman, but the entire unit has bows. That, if you're going to focus on shooting and maybe bring some spells that help with shooting, Lore of High Magic, Lore of Shadows, both do very well with that. It's not a terrible unit. if I want to go, sometimes I just play a Seaguard type theme list, and it's nice to have 50 of them as your basic your compulsory core. It's more points than you need, but you're good. But again, it's not like you have better fighters if you want to play a melee focused army. Next we have Silver Helms. Okay, these guys are like nicely point. Like I love their point level. It makes sense. Unfortunately, suffer from being cavalry in 8th edition. So in a competitive list, or if you want to make just your first list or strong list, it's not something you want to use. They just don't add a lot of value to the game anymore because of Horror, because of Steadfast. They don't do enough to break your opponent and help you win fights. Now these high elf Silver Helms, they do a little bit better than your average basic knight because they have that nice 9-inch move. They will have lances, and they're an initiative 5 always strikes first. They're probably going to roll to hit, which almost makes them enough as a flanking unit. But the problem is the game has so many ways of dealing with knights these days that they're rarely going to do that job for you. Yeah, so 21 points per model. You have another 2 points per model to take shields. I always would. Might as well get a 2-up armor save and just charge in with your 1 strength 5 attack. Rerolling to hit. It will add combat resolution to your fights, but you gotta protect them from getting shot to death or magicked off the table. And the next and final core unit is my staple. I always have 2 units of 5 Ellyrian Reavers in every High Elf army I bring. This is going for a weird thing. So you have fast cavalry with that movement 9. Martial prowess, always strike first. You can choose what weapons you want to give on them. You can have bows or spears, but I take both. You're going to run around and plink at units until you get close enough to charge war machines, certain chaff units. With that always strike first reroll, it's not as risky, and you're going to kill a war machine crew with Reavers. Now the thing is, earlier I talked about the archers, like a small block of archers flanking into a combat to help out combat resolution. You would think that these Reavers would do a good job of that. Never do that. They always take more casualties than they bring. You're gonna have 5 if the full squad charges in somebody's flank. You're gonna have 5 models with basically 10 attacks, 5 from the spears and 5 from the horses. The horses probably aren't going to do anything. No, I shouldn't say that. The horses always do more work. But you're going to maybe kill 1 or 2 mauls with the squad, but then the attack back is going to kill them. You only have 5-up save. It just they never add anything to combat. They rarely add anything to combat. There's no absolutes in this game. There's no absolutes in any game. But it's almost always a bad idea to charge them into combat. The High Elves do that job. And that's our core. 2 units of Reavers, and then the rest of your points and archers in small squads is a nice core for High Elves. But the thematic, the visual of the rank of Spearman just marching forward, like it's so High Elves, I get it, but you don't typically want to use them that often. Let's move on to special units. So we have the Lion Chariot of Grace. It is a strength 5, toughness 4 chariot with a 4-up armor save. So it's a beefy chariot, tougher than more. It's on par with like an orc boar chariot. It does only move 8 inches, but it does have actual giant white lions to drag it forward into combat. The lions themselves are pretty decent in combat. 2 strength 5 attacks per lion. You have 4 strength 5 attacks. Plus the crew are armed with great weapons. Great woodsman axes. So you're going to get another, 2 crew over here, I believe, right? Yeah, 2 charioteers, so 2 more attacks at strength 5. No, strength 6. Because white lion charioteers are strength 4. No, you're not going to suffer the always strikes last for the great weapon. You're going to swing that weapon at initiative. And it comes with fear because the lions are scary and stubborn. It's not a bad unit. It's actually a pretty solid unit. In fact, if you go back to 8th or you go back to 7th edition, this thing is crazy good. 6th is still pretty good. But in 8th edition, it's a 120 point chaff unit that will do a lot. But it doesn't fill a role that the High Elves need filled. Because it's a chariot, it can never march, so it's arguably one of your slowest things. It's only ever moving 8. It is one of your slowest things. It only ever is moving 8 inches. It does not fill a hole that the High Elves have. It looks cool. It will get work done when it charges, but it doesn't fit with the rest of the army as a whole, to be honest with you. Okay, we're gonna have the first big combat unit of special infantry to talk about is the actual White Lions of Grace themselves. They have a cool lore thing. We're not talking about lore. They have the standard elf stat with 2 increases. They're going to be weapon skill 5 because these guys are elite, and they are strength 4 with great weapons. So they're fighting at strength 6 at initiative. Great weapons give you always strikes last. High Elves have always strikes first. They cancel each other out, so they fight with their axes at initiative. They come with those line cloaks and heavy armor. So 5 up armor in close combat, and then 3 up armor against shooting. I think it's non-magic shooting. Martial prowess, they're fighting in 3 ranks. Superb. And they can, of course, take a magic item, magic banner worth up to 50 points. The Guardian, that's like the champion of the unit, can take a magic weapon worth up to 25 points. I don't think you ever need to. And they're 13 points a model. They're so good. I own 40 some odd of them. I don't use them that often, mostly because they're too good. If you want to talk, if there was a major tournament coming up, which one day won't be major. One day, mini wargaming will host a fantasy tournament for all those who still love it. My army, if I play in the event, I will have a horde of White Lions for sure, led by a Alarm, unless we put in some sort of restrictions of what can and can't be brought. It is a staple for the competitive, the strong High Elf army. The horde of White Lions just do very well. Now you look at the stats; they're strength 4, strength 6 with a great weapon, 13 points a model, always strikes first, always strikes last, only 5 up armor save. They're going to do a lot of work in close combat, but they're going to die really fast. Be like, okay, that doesn't seem too bad. It seems pretty good. But it's when you start combining a bunch of other things with this unit is when they get really good. But so White Lions, one of the 3 elite infantry units. All 3 are good. This one's the best, though you can make an argument for the Phoenix Guard. Next, we have the Swordmasters of Hoeth. They are, again, the exact same points. They're 13 points as the White Lions. They will have 1 more weapon skill, 1 less strength, and 1 more attack. So we have weapon skill 6 on this infantry squad. We have only strength 3, but they have great weapons, so they're strength 5. Fighting at initiative, and they have 2 attacks per model, which is great for the front rank. Again, supporting ranks, so your second, third, whatever rank is only going to get 1 attack per model, but still, you're getting more attacks per 20 mil square than any other unit in your, well, no, not your Spearman, but for strength 5 attacks, they are getting the most efficient amount of strength 5 attacks per 20 mil square in your army. They have always strikes first and deflect shots. They're a little bit more defensive against missiles. Knocking missiles and arrows out of the air. As you can see, both the White Lions and Swordmasters have that ability, or sorry, not the same ability, but some sort of defense against ranged attacks, because for years, High Elves always had a higher point cost than another infantry model, and shooting would just tear them down, and if they never got into combat, he's lost the game, right? You lost very expensive units. It's just a rule that's kind of stuck around with them for a while, the Lion Cloak and the Deflect Missiles, since I was a kid. I don't know if they need it anymore, but, it helps. Now, these guys only have a heavy armor, 5 up armor save. They have a lot of attacks, 5 up armor. They are going to die. Now, there are ways to keep them alive with characters and magic. You're just typically going to get more value out of the White Lions over the Swordmasters. Sorry, I did forget to mention the White Lions are stubborn. I mentioned that with the Chariot, but that's all White Lion. And that's one of the main reasons why you take them White Lions. So, 2 strength 5 attacks for the Swordmasters, 1 strength 6 attack for the White Lions. But you also get stubborn. It just wins out. You don't see Swordmasters very often used competitively. However, they do very well. They do very well in little blocks of 3x3 because you can fight in 3 ranks. And that's basically 3/6. It's 12 attacks for a little tiny square of just flanking. Initiative 5, weapon skill 6. They're hitting almost everything on 3s. And then they're going to wound most things on 2s, if otherwise 3s. They will add a positive combat resolution to a combat that they charge into in the flank. But I just find that I don't have the points to spend on them, but it is not a bad way of using those high elves. Or sorry, using those Swordmasters. Next we got Shadow Warriors. They really were more of a staple in previous editions. So you have your weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 5 elves with scout and longbows. They hate dark elves because lore-wise they are from the same province as the dark elves. And you got scouts and skirmishers. They're 14 points a model with longbows and light armor. They don't. I don't find them to be that necessary. I find your Reavers will, your Reavers, your magic, your archers, if you bring archers, are gonna do whatever job that you want these Shadow Warriors to fill. Like, these were much more important when armies were smaller. Now that armies are bigger, you're using far more of the table than you ever were in previous editions. I just find them to be a remnant of past editions. They're no longer by any means necessary, but they're cool and they have really cool newish models that I think you can still buy. Next, we're going to talk about the Phoenix Guard. They're the 3rd special elite unit. They are weapon skill 5, initiative 6, and leadership 9. As compared to the other elite infantry. They come with heavy armor and halberds. So you got strength 3, but you're going to have strength 4 because you're halberd, and only have 5-up save. Now, their initiative 6 and always strikes first means even against most characters, they're going to reroll to hit. And they're on a 20 mil base. You can hoard them up and get just a buttload of attacks out of the unit. Now, lore reasons, they know the moment they're going to die, and they take an oath of silence. They never speak in combat. They're just silent. They don't run. They don't scream. They just silently fight, and for some reason, that gives them the ability. It gives them the fear special rule. So people are afraid of fighting them, and then all of a sudden they're immune to fear because they don't talk for themselves. And they have the Witness to Destiny special rule. They come built in with a 4-up ward save. Now, if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't even talk about this unit. It's just an expensive, slightly higher strength Spearman unit. We wouldn't even talk about it. But that 4-up ward save is so good. Now, I prefer this unit. I like this unit competitively. It's 15 points per model instead of the 13 you're looking at White Lions. But it comes with their own built-in 4-up ward save. But White Lions tend to hit harder. So there's a lot of... and the Phoenix Guard have nice, new, beautiful models you can buy and assemble. So both of them are quite good. Competitively, if you want to go all out, you probably want to go with White Lions. But if you want to start off with Phoenix Guard, you are going to have a very, very strong infantry unit that a lot of new players just won't be prepared to fight against. It's actually a really, really solid unit, and they require less support from characters and other things to make them really good. Now, obviously, characters and spells will make them significantly better, but you don't have to do any of that, and they're still quite reliable. So if you want to buy a high elf army, if you can find the models, you can still buy a Phoenix Guard. We'll go buy them up, buy a horde of 40, and you have a very obnoxious, very powerful unit to play with. Next, we got Dragon Princes of Caledor. We have elite heavy cavalry. They have weapon skill 5, initiative 6, and 2 attacks per model. But they're only strength 3. And they're going to have Ithamar Barding, so they're going to have that sweet movement 9 on heavy cavalry with a 2-up armor save, 6-up ward save, 2-up ward save against flaming attacks. The Drake Master, the Sergeant, can spend 25 points. Oh no, he can spend 50 points to buy magic weapons or armor. I can't think of anything I'd want to do offhand. But we'll go over that later maybe. And then they have a banner worth up to 75 points. A solid unit is going to give you a lot of attacks, 29 points per model. and then you just buy the command obviously for it. They look really cool. You can't buy the models anymore. They were beautiful. They were amazing in 7th edition. They don't have a role in 8th edition anymore. So you don't need them by any means, but they get some tax in. And because you fight in 3 ranks, you can make them 3 wide like a Bretonnian bus and have a small frontage and get a lot of attacks. So 3 by 3 by 3, so 3, 3, 3. You have a lot of attacks on your enemy, and less of them are going to attack you. But still, you gotta allocate your points wisely. If you bought a horde of elite infantry and then you brought a level 4 mage, you don't have a lot of points left over for frivolous things. All right, we have a Lothern. A Skycutter is a flying chariot as a special choice. It is pulled by a rock. It's just like a little great eagle. It moves 10 because it has fly. It can't march because it's a chariot. But it's pretty solid. Oh, you can put a little mini bolt thrower on it. It's like only 1 strength 5 shot, I believe. But it's actually really good for putting behind your main lines and looking as like a counter charge unit because it's fly, it can charge over your own units. It's a pretty good defensive piece. I wouldn't make it any cheaper point-wise, but if it was, it would be an auto include. Like it's 95 points without purchasing the bolt thrower. I wouldn't buy the bolt thrower. The 25 extra points for the bolt thrower doesn't seem to be worth it. Other than it looks cool, so I'd buy for that. Because you lose a couple of crew. But yeah, it's a pretty solid counter charge or just a defensive unit that's hiding your back lines, ready to charge something that gets too close. Man, if it was even 20 points cheaper, you would see competitively 2 of these in every army. But if you go download Battlescribe, if you don't already have it, put it into Hiles and Warhammer Fantasy, start making lists. You see how quickly you burn through your points. But yeah, these are solid. I only have one. Actually, if anybody has one of these as well, unbuilt, because I have an idea for something, I would like to purchase that. I'm looking for a dragon, High Elf Dragon kit and a Lothern Skycutter kit. Tyrannok Chariots are the next thing. They are 70 points. Again, if they were any cheaper, they'd be auto includes. Strength 5 Chariots with only a 5 up armor save. They do have 4 wounds. They have that 9-inch move and always strikes first in the crew. But other than that, it's your basic chariot. Always strikes first in the crew is not bad, but you're using it for the strength 5 impact attacks. The problem is 70 points, I think, is a bit too high. Not too high. It's not too expensive, because I would use them at 70, but it's hard to justify them in an army unless you're making sort of themed list. There are other things you can spend those points on that can do the job that you Chariots to do. Next, we got the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower. It's only 70 points. It's forever been 100 points per model, but shooting is less valuable in 8th edition, as we've seen the models per unit skyrocket in this edition compared to previous editions. But it is a bolt thrower that fires like a bolt thrower from the main rule book, or it can fire multiple. It can fire 6 shots. I'm going to see what page is on. See how they word that. I have no idea where to find. Whatever, we're not going to go over it. Oh wait, it's going to be here. It's on the Defenders of Lothern. Okay. So yeah, you can fire 1 shot like a regular bolt thrower, or you can fire 6 shots, range 48, strength 4, armor piercing. It does not pierce ranks, and is it multiple shot? Nope, it's not multiple shot. So it's not -1. I figured I would know that. So in years past, previous editions, there was such an auto include. You played against tiles or with tiles, you knew there's going to be a bolt thrower or a few on the table. You don't need them anymore. If you don't have a single bolt thrower in your army, you're fine. But if you do, they'll help you out. They're good at clearing chaff, killing off characters on mounts. If your opponent brings cavalry, they're great for clearing cavalry. They're not bad. Now, you can take. They're a rare choice. That's the first rare thing we're talking about. You can take up to 4 in your army instead of the normal 2. Next we have Great Eagles. And there's no... Interesting. Okay, so Great Eagles, if you've seen any high elf bat reps, there's always 2 in every one of my army. Always. Always. But we can make them squads now. So, okay, so for 50 points, you have a flying weapon skill 5, strength and toughness 4, 3 wound, 2 attack, leadership 8, monstrous beast. It redirects, it flanks, it hunts war machines, it stops people from charging you. Competitively, you bring 2 Great Eagles every time. Now, you can make them a squad of, I think, oh, this is 1+. I can see an argument for a squad of 3. And there's some bonus to doing that. Because they're flying, the second you make them a squad of 2, all of a sudden they become skirmishers. And they're -1 to hit. And even if the first one dies, like one dies off and there's only one still alive, it's actually acting like a regular Great Eagle. It still has skirmisher and it's -1 to hit. It's weird. I have not had much success using them in squads. They're just so good for 50 points running around doing a lot of work for you. Now you can upgrade them with Swift Sense and Shredding Talons for 10 points. You can give them Always Strikes First. You don't need it. You don't need it. And then Shredding Talons, I believe, is Armor Piercing on the Talons for 5 points. You don't need it. I like the 50-point basic Great Eagle, 2 in every list. Leave it like that. We're going to talk about the Sisters of Avelorn, a unit that I've never purchased, and then we'll talk about the Phoenixes. Phoenix? Is Phoenix already plural? Okay, so Sisters of Avelorn, we have Weapon Skill 5, Ballistic Skill 5, Archer unit. They have the Bow of Loren and Light Armor. So they have those 24-inch range, flaming attacks, magical attack, -1 save against destruction. Not a bad unit, but they're 14 points of model. And the ballistic skill 5 with bows, not longbows, bows. So they can get work done. I always kind of thought they were not too expensive for what they do, but expensive to have a small squad to spend 140 points on. Well, you want to buy a musician. Do they have musicians? No musicians. Ooh. I've never noticed that before. They don't even have the option to take a musician. So no Swift reform. So it's 140 points for a 10-man squad that can get work done, but will die like that. It's too frail. For whatever job they're going to do, like I can buy 2 bolt throwers for that. Bolt throwers are going to survive longer. Alright, so a couple more things we're talking about is the Flame Spire Phoenix and then the Frostheart Phoenix, and that is all the units with the exception of named characters. Now, if you want to, well, we'll talk about actually a couple named characters. We'll talk about one named character, Alarielle. I'm not going to talk about the named characters typically because I don't really think named characters belong in the game. They're a little too powerful. But if you're going from a competitive standpoint, Alarielle the Radiant is going to be in your army. She's like the auto-include for a competitive, super strong army. If you really want to hear about the other characters, say so in the comments. I'll review them as well if there's enough votes. But not a lot of people use named characters that much in fantasy anymore. But let's talk about these Phoenix and see what they do. So unfortunately the Flamespire Phoenix doesn't see a whole lot of action. It's not bad, but for only a few points more you can get a Frostheart Phoenix, which is significantly better. Point difference is going to get you that. So yes, in the reference here. So 225 points for the Flamespire Phoenix, that's the fiery one, and 240 points for the Frostheart. So the lore is, basic Phoenix lore. They burn out, they die, they reborn of fire. If a Phoenix gets to, in this world, old enough age, the fire burns so hot it turns cold, essentially. So the Frostheart Phoenix are the older, more ancient Flamespire Phoenix. Okay, so a Phoenix Flamespire is movement 2, whatever it flies, so movement 10. But if you get hit by a spell that prevents flying, it's moving 2 inches a turn. Weapon skill 5, 0 ballistic skill, strength and toughness 5, 5 wounds, 4 initiative 4, 3 attacks, leadership 8. It has the Fireborn special rule, so ignores. Sorry, it's a 2 aboard save against any attacks with a flaming attack special rule. All of its attacks are itself flaming. It has fly, large target, and terror. It is it is attuned to magic. It comes with a 5-up ward save. Now, every time you roll your Winds of Magic, you have to consult, I think it's the highest die. Yeah, so whichever the highest die your Winds of Magic roll is, you have to consult the chart, and your Phoenix are going to have a buff or debuff relating to the die show there. You almost always get a buff. You don't typically roll really bad Winds of Magic, but it does happen. So if your highest Winds of Magic die is a 6, so basically, sorry, a 1, basically you roll double 1s for your Winds of Magic. Your ward save drops to a 6 up for your Phoenix. That applies to both varieties. If your highest is a 2, the Phoenix is -1 strength. If your highest is 3, it's +1 initiative. That doesn't matter. And then if your highest is 4, you have +1 attack. If your highest is 5, +1 strength. And if your highest is a 6, your war save increases to 4 up, which is the sweet one. The Phoenix, the Flamespire Phoenix, when it dies, you can leave a marker on the table. And you can roll die at the end of, I think it's the end of the turn, and consult the chart. It could explode and do fire damage, or on a 6+, it comes back to life, and you have a Phoenix reborn, ready to fight some more. Okay, and it has the Wake of Fire special rule. In the remaining move subphase, you can choose one unit it flew over, and that unit takes D6 Strength 4 hits, plus an additional additional D3 hits per rank after the first with the flaming attack special rule. That's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, it's not terrible. You can get some nice movements and go with things. You can just do lots of damage to things. All that seems pretty decent. I kind of gloss over it a little bit because it's just heavily overshadowed by the Frostheart Phoenix. For how many points was it more again? 20 points more? 15 points more. For 15 points more, you're going to buy the Frostheart every time. So a competitive list, you're going to probably want to bring 1 or 2 Frosthearts and 0 Flamespire. I own 1 of each. Often I'll bring both because it's cool to bring them all as you have. But for 15 more points, the Frostheart is just I would pay 50. I'd pay 50 points more, not just 15. So the Frostheart has weapon skill 6 instead of weapon skill 5. It is strength and toughness 6 instead of strength and toughness 5. That's huge. Same wounds. It's got lower initiative. It's only initiative 3. It does have 1 more attack and 1 more leadership. Those are all, that alone is worth 50 points, not the 15 you're paying. Like that's just gravy. Those are better weapon skill, 5 to 6. It's not that big of a deal, but 6 is nice. Strength and toughness 6 over strength and toughness 5 is huge. +1 attack, pretty good. +1 leadership, really good. It can reliably go out on its own with a general nearby. Still keep it next to the BSB if you can. It is a Tune of Magic fly and terror, but it has its own built-in natural armor of 5+ because he's so cold. So you get a little extra armor. You still get your 5 ward save adjusted by the Attuned to Magic chart, and then the best ability he comes with, which it's so good. He has a Blizzard Aura. Any enemy unit in base contact with a Frostheart Phoenix has the Always Strikes Last rule. Any enemy unit in base contact with a Frostheart has the Always Strikes Last rule. In addition, suffers -1 to its strength to a minimum of 1. It goes. You can take a terrible Spearman unit charging the combat. As long as a Frostheart charges in the same combat, the Spearmen are going to do quite well. -1 strength, Always Strikes Last on your opponent. Well, the Always Strikes Last is less of an issue for your Isles, but maybe if you're fighting something with high initiative with your Swordmen or Swordmasters or your White Lions, it helps. But handing out the Always Strikes Last and -1 strength, so good. So good. And again, strength toughness 6. It's so good. And this was again, I have to double check that. 15 points more than the Flamespire? It doesn't make sense. Yeah. 15 points more. Yeah, if they made this guy 50, well, I wouldn't actually make him more points. I would actually drop the points of the Flamespire. The Flamespire seems to be overcosted by about 50 to 75 points to hefty in the points. Let's talk about the magic and the magic items. The video's already longer than I expected, but I'm not even halfway through what I wanted to get through, so I'm gonna shave a little bit off because not everything here is needed. But the lore of high magic. Okay, so every lore has this lore attribute. Lizardmen can also use the lore of high magic, but they get a different lore attribute. So the lore attribute for the high elves is Shield of Sapphire. Each time a spell from this lore is successfully cast, the caster and the unit get +1 to their ward save to a maximum of 3+. Until the beginning of the caster's next magic phase. Models that do not already have a ward save and instead gain a 6 of ward save, and can be increased with further castings. It's not bad. It's actually, I think, one of the better lore attributes in the game. Now there are 2 signature spells. You get Drain Magic and Soul Quench. Soul Quench is a casting value 8+. Now remember, if you're high elves and you're using this lore, you're +1 to all your casting attempts. Soul Quench is a magic missile, a range of only 18, but causes 2d6 strength 4 hits. You can extend, make it 46 strength 4 hits. It becomes casting value 16. That's a solid signature spell. The other signature spell is Drain Magic. Drain Magic can be cast on any unit, friend or foe. It has a range of 18. If it targets a friendly unit, it's an augment. If it targets an enemy unit, it's a hex. And basically, it removes all magic effects on a unit. It drains magic off them. You can turn into a casting value of 14 and affects every unit within 18 inches. So if you're fighting against somebody who's putting on maybe the withering on your units, you can just drain it right off them, take it off of them. Maybe they have a bunch of defensive buffs on their unit. They have troll guts and spine marrow. You can just drain it right off them, remove all their magic buffs. It's probably one of the greatest signature spell. It's probably my favorite signature spell in the entire game. Drain Magic is so good. And then your wizard's going to gain +1 his ward save for him and his unit when he casts it. And it's a signature spell, so multiple wizards can cast it in a phase. And you have 2 signature spells in this lore. Your level 4 can roll 4 spells and swap 2 of them off for like one for Drain Magic, 1 for Soul Quench. And then we got the actual spells. Number 1 is Apotheosis. It's a casting on a 5+. It is an augment. You heal D3 lost wounds, and the unit gets fear. It's a heal spell. Sorry, wait, it's 1 lost wound. You can cast on 10+ to do D3 lost wounds. It's not a great spell. Like if you want healing, you want the Lore of Life instead. But you'll notice something about that actually. Lore of High Magic has something. So this is a spell that feels like it comes from the Lore of Life. So Lore of High Magic is a combination of all the 8 winds. So all of the 8 spells here, remember 2 of them are signature. Each one has a kind of a feel from the different 8 lore. Right? Next we got Hand of Glory. It's a 5+ to cast. It's an augment spell with a range of 18. You can pick a unit's weapon skill, ballistic skill, initiative, or movement, and increase it by D3. Or you can make it a 10+ to cast and increase all of them by D3. D3 movement and initiative. D3 movement is really good. Initiative can be very good in certain situations. And ballistic skill can be very good if you're going with a big horde of Sea Guard with bows. Walk Between Worlds is a fantastic spell. It's casting value of 8 and it is an augment spell with a range of 24. A target unit gains the Ethereal Special Rule until the end of the phase and can immediately move up to 10 inches as if it was the remaining move subphase. So you're not going to charge, but you get a 10-inch move with Ethereal, so you move through models and terrain. The wizard can choose to cast a more powerful version of the spell, in which case the target unit can move 20 inches. But the casting value increases to 16. This spell can win you the game. All of a sudden, you're about a unit getting caught and costing you the game, or you need to catch a unit to win the game. That's a game-winning spell. Next, we got Tempest for 12 to cast. It's a direct damage spell. You place a large round template anywhere within 30 inches of the wizard, and then scatters D6. All models hit by the template suffer a strength 3 hit. It's only strength 3. It's not terrible. It's a large template. Unless you have the fly keyword, in which case you suffer a strength 4 hit. Not keyword. That's a different game. Unless you have this fly special rule, then it's a strength 4 hit. And that unit suffers -1 to all the hit rolls, both shooting and close combat, and the start of the caster's next magic phase. If you shoot without using a ballistic skills, like say for a cannon on a 4+ you just can't. It's really good. It's really good. It's really good. And then we have Arcane Unforging, 13 to cast. It's a direct damage spell with a range of 24. Targets a single enemy model, even a character in a unit. The target suffers a single wound on the dice roll. The target suffers a single wound on a dice roll greater than or equal to than the model's unmodified armor save, kind of like the Lore of Metal. No armor saves are allowed. The player then must reveal all the magic items on that character. If you have more than one, randomly select one of the items and is immediately destroyed on a roll of 2+, and cannot be used for the rest of the game. Note that this has no effect on magic items that are mounts, magic items that contain down spells, that have miscast during the game, or any magic items labeled as one use only that have already been used during the game. So basically, if you have like a one use only magic item and a magic helmet, and somebody casts a spell on you, you don't randomly determine the helmet or the already used item. Is the helmet. It can be really good. It can pull out a very powerful item that is holding back your army. Like if you're going up against ogres and they're bringing the Hellheart or the Mob Banner, sitting in the Mob Banner would prevent it from being targeted. But yeah, it's really good for killing very powerful magic items. And then the last spell, Fiery Convocations, a 19 to cast. It remains in play, direct damage spell with a range of 24. Every model unit takes a strength 4 hit with a flaming attack special rule. At the end of every magic phase, yours and your opponent, every model unit will take another strength 4 hit until your opponent removes the spell. So good. Now, here you're saying, like, I just went through all the spells. I said they're all so good. And they are. And that's my struggle with this lore. They're all really good, but Lore of Shadows and Lore of Life typically solve more problems for elves than all of this does, which is unfortunate. I want to see this the primary lore, but if you're using the lore of high magic, you're pretty much not playing the best elves you can play. Though it's all quite good. Let's talk about some magic weapons in Vol's Forge. We have the Blade of Leaping Gold. It's 70 points. You get +3 attacks. If you roll any 6s to wound with the blade, you ignore armor saves. Garbage. Never going to get used. Never going to get used. We have the Star Lance for 30 points. Mounted characters only. On that charge, the lance is +3 strength, and armor saves cannot be taken against the Star Lance. Not terrible. It's only 30 points though. The Reaver Bow is 25 points. You can have a bow with 30-inch range. It's +1 strength, almost all the characters are strength 4, so it's basically a strength 5 bow with the volley fire and the multiple shots 3 special. It's only 25 points. It's not bad. The problem is after you buy a noble to hold it, and then he pays for the magic item, and then he typically doesn't get his points back. Like he costs as much as a full squad of archers. I don't see a whole lot of use for it. The Armor of Caledor is 50 points. It's a 2-up armor save that cannot be improved by any means. Pretty good if you're on a mount. You also gain a 6-up ward save and the Fireborn special rule. Armor of Shadows is 25 points for a model on foot. You get a 5-up armor save, and where it gets the Scout and Strider special rule. So I mean, you can take a character, give him this armor, give him the Reaver Bow. He now costs 150 points, 160 points, and he can scout and deploy up the field with Shadow Warriors. He's expensive. He's probably not going to get his points back, but it's kind of cool. Shield of the Merworm is the next magic armor. It's 15 points, and I have this on my BSB all the time. It's a shield, and it basically gives him a 4 parry save. So it's a way of getting a 4 ward save on your BSB in close combat without having to spend a bunch of points on it. It's only 15 points to give him that 4 board save in close combat. The Golden Crown of Atrazar is kind of like an auto-include. It's 10 points and is 1 use only. The Golden Crown of Atrazar bestows a 2-up ward save against the first wounding hit suffered by the bearer, but hits don't wound. So it's the first wound the guy takes. Which cancels out only the wound, but also any killing blow or multiple attack special or multiple wound special rules. After which the power fades, is not used for the rest of the game. It's only 10 points. It's basically an extra wound for 10 points. Moranians? Wayshard for 50 points, a model on foot only. The bear has the ambusher special rule. You can also give the ambusher special rule to any archers or spearmen up to 30 models in size. He has to immediately join the unit and can't leave him during the game. It's really cool, fluffy, but like it's not great. You're not gonna ever really use it. You don't want to. You already have an elite special forces army that you don't want to have very expensive unit and potentially character not showing up for a couple of turns. You can't afford to not use all your pieces. Kane's Ring of Fury. It's a bound spell, power level 3. It knows the Soul Quench spell from the Lore of High Magic. It's a solid magic item. The Sunfire Gem is 20 points, 1 use only. During the game in which the Sunfire Gem is used, all the bear's attacks, shooting attacks, close combat attacks, and mount, if he has one, has +1 bonus to wound. A 1 still fails. Provided they also have the Flaming Attack special rule. So it basically is really good for if you take a Dragon Mage or even an Archmage who's blower of fire. Take this thing, crack it, and throw a bunch of fire spells at somebody. +1 to wound for all those attacks. Now that I think about it, I actually use that more. That's really good. +1 to wound in Warhammer Fantasy is huge. Huge. A fire mage with this can, in one good roll of Winds of Magic, can destroy things. Alright, Cloak of Beards for 10 points, an enchanted item. The wearer of the Cloak of Beards causes fear. In addition, dwarves hate the character. Oh, sorry, causes terror to dwarves. And they hate the character who has the Cloak of Beards. There's more. In addition to the start of each close combat phase, roll a d6 for each magic item carried by each model from Warhammer Dwarves that is in base contact with the bearer. On a roll of 4+, the magic item is destroyed and cannot be used for the rest of the battle. Note that it has no effect on mount, blah, 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 mounts and stuff. I don't like items that are specific against certain factions, but it's kind of cool. And then we have 2 more magic items that are absolutely amazing. First of all, we have the Book of Hoeth. People like to say it that way. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. It's 55 points, so you only get on a Lord level character. It's going to be on your Loremaster or your Archmage. It allows the bearer to re-roll a single die from each of his casting or dispelling attempts. Results of a 6 cannot be re-rolled. So I can't remember the math on this, but it is, I think, mathematically the equivalent of having two levels higher in tier casting value. Basically, if you are a level 2, mathematically it's equivalent to casting as if you were level 4. If you're level 4, it's mathematically equivalent to if you were level 6, thereabouts. Because you reroll 1 die and whatever. It always backfires on me. I always either roll lower or miscast. Like it always backfires. It always backfires. But like it's such a, I would always include it. It's good. And then finally, the Banner of the World Dragon. This item is a never include, unless you're playing competitive. If you are playing a friendly game, do not bring this banner. This banner is probably, it's up there for like top 3 most overpowered items in this entire game. It is a good contender for the most overpowered thing in the entire game. But there are a couple other things that are, but my vote is this is the most overpowered. Okay, so all models in the unit that carries the Banner of the World Dragon have a 2-up ward save against all wounds caused by spells, magic weapons, and magical attacks. That doesn't exist anywhere else. Like those Sisters of Avelorn with all their bows or magical attacks, you'd have a 2-up ward save against. Everything, ghosts, wraiths, almost every special character in the game, you have 2-up ward save against them. Now it'll apply to the characters in the unit too. So you just take a big old horde of white lions, give them the Banner of the World Dragon because their guy, you can't even kill it out. It's hiding in the unit. you have a 2 aboard save against magic. Spells, weapons, nothing else in this game gives a 2 aboard save against weapons. Every attack from the demon's army counts as magical. If you're taking the banner of the World Dragon against demons, like you have 2 aboard save against every attack they do, everything they do. It doesn't make sense. It's too good. It is crazy OP. But if you're going competitive, you're gonna know and the hiles are on the table. You know they have this somewhere. And furthermore, all dragons, friend and foe, within 12 inches of the banner of the World Dragon have this stubborn special rule. Crazy OP. Now, there's one more thing we're going to talk about, without getting into all the special characters. Again, comment below if you really want them. If there's enough comments and enough thumbs up on those comments, I will go over them, but I suspect many of you don't care too much. However, I will cover Alarielle the Radiant. Okay, Alarielle is a wizard with weapon skill 6, the skill 5, strength toughness 3, 3 wounds, initiative 6, 1 attack, leadership 10. Alarielle the Radiant is a level 4 wizard who uses spells from the lore of life, lore of light, and the lore of high magic. She can generate all her spells from the same lore, or 2 or more, or from 2 or more of above lores in any combination. Declare how many spells should be used from each lore before spells are generated. Now, basically, what you want to do is you want to bring Alarielle, roll all 4 of her spells from the realm for the lore of life. But you also want to bring a level 2 wizard to also roll on the lore of life and roll that one first. And basically, without getting too deep into it, you want to roll the level 2 first to see what 2 spells you're going to have, and Alarielle's going to have the remaining 4, and you're probably going to swap one or both of them out for the lore attribute. But neither one of them is going to need the lore attribute because the way the rest of this is going to go. Okay. All attacks made by the Everqueen's unit are magical attacks. In addition, all mauls in her unit are immune to fear and terror. So you're going to have her in a horde of white lions who are stubborn, immune to fear and terror, and all of their attacks are magical. Anything ethereal, you're going to burn right through. You're afraid of other high elves with the banner of the World Dragon, but they also have this thing, and you're both going to be fighting the same fight, right? So you have a 2 aboard save against all magical attacks because you have banner of the World Dragon in your white lions, and your attacks themselves are magical. You're already stubborn, and now you're immune to fear and terror. Our next rule is Chaos Bane. Oh, you know what? I'll give you a little bit of context here. She's not the cheapest. She's 350 points. Alright, her next rule is Chaos Bane. At the start of each of Alarielle's magic phases, before rolling Winds of Magic, every unit with the demonic special roll within 12 of Alarielle suffers D6 strength hits, strength 4 hits, distributed as if for shooting attacks. However, Alarielle suffers minus D3 to her casting temps if there are one or more mauls with a demonic special roll within 12. You don't care. You're gonna do fine against demons, but if they're within 12 of you, minus D3 to your casting attempts. That's not gonna matter, as you'll see shortly. Like if you go against demons, you're winning with piles and this combo. She has a touch of the Everqueen special rule. Alarielle's close combat attacks, she has 1. Have the hero killing blow rule if it's directed against the maul from the forces of destruction. Okay. Alarielle has a magic item called the Shield Stone of Isha. Talisman. It grants Alarielle and her unit a 5 aboard save against non-magical attacks. But you're in a unit with the banner of the World Dragon, which has a 2 aboard save against magical attacks. So now these white lions have a 5 up armor, 5 aboard save if you have non-magical attacks against them, or a 2 aboard save if you do have magical attacks. So ward save either way. She has the Star of Avelorn, and it's an enchanted item. At the start of your movement phase, nominate a single friendly character within 12. That model immediately regains a single lost wound lost earlier in battle. Alarielle can only restore her own wounds if there are no other visible target or viable target within range. It's just an extra wound for one of your characters, and you're going to have a few. She has the Stave of Avelorn, or the Stave of Avelorn. It's an arcane item, 1 use only. The stave is used in the magic phase. When used, it allows Alarielle to immediately attempt to cast a spell she's already cast in the phase, even if the casting attempt failed or was dispelled. The spell is otherwise cast according to the normal rules. There's a guaranteed throw, and there's a near guaranteed second attempt at dwellers or something. Like, just remind your opponent you have that every magic phase, and they don't know what to dispel. Well, that is it for Alarielle. However, if you bring Alarielle in your army, already she's worth her 350 points, almost, right? Or no, she is. But she has access to 2 other magic items that you take. This is where things get nuts. But first of all, the first one is the Horn of Isha. It's an enchanted item. One use only. The Horn of Isha can be used at the start of your movement phases. For the remainder of the turn, all mauls in the bear's unit receive +1 to hit on all shooting and close combat attacks. Now, it's going to be hard to squeeze that in somewhere, but it can be done. Basically, there's no points on that. Are these free ringer? That can't be the case. Oh, no. Yeah, the Horn of Isha is only for the handmaidens. That's why I've never used it. It's only for the handmaiden, the other queen. She's basically a character version of the Sisters of Avelorn. It's 50 points. And then the other one, the Banner of Avelorn, is going to be for the noble. Yeah, for 40 points. That's not right. So the next one's the Banner of Avelorn. And your Magic Standard, that's going to be on your BSB. Which means he's going to be a little easier to kill. He's not going to have his Shield of the Weight. I forget what it's called. Shield of the Mirrorworm. But he's going to be in a unit that Alarielle's giving him a 5 ward save, and then the unit's giving him a 2 ward save against magic. He'll be fine. The Magic Standard, spells from the Lore of Light and the Lore of Life cast by a friendly wizard that target a unit containing the Banner of Avelorn receive a +4 bonus to cast. If Alarielle is slain, it no longer works. So basically, your level 4 Alarielle, or your level... Well, talk about Alarielle first. Your level 4 Alarielle, when casting any of the Lore of Life buffs, which are all the spells except for... I guess there's 2. Awakening of the Wood and Dwellers Below. But she's going to put Healing, Thorn of Vines, Flesh to Stone at +4. So she essentially is a level 8 wizard when casting Lore of Life spells on her unit. Do you want to waste your dice stopping a 2 dice Throne of Vines that's +8? So okay, you stop the throne. If she really wants it, she can use her staff once per game and do it again. You pretty much have to let the throne go off every time and remove it on your turn. And then she's going to cast Flesh to Stone at +8. Like you have to throw all your dice, your spell scroll. This is going to be the most defensible unit you've ever seen. So you're almost always going to be fighting against a toughness 7 white line stubborn unit immune to fear and terror with a 5 aboard save unless the attacks are magical, and it's a 2 aboard save. And I say they're stubborn. They are strength 4, fighting in 3 ranks, fighting at initiative. Strength 6 because great weapons, fighting at initiative. It's all your eggs in one basket. There's going to be 1 or 2 Frost Hearts flying around to support, but it works. I think in 300 and some odd 400 fantasy backups, I've done this twice, and I made sure my opponent had huge forewarning. Like I made sure they knew exactly what was happening. You don't do this in a friendly game, but that is a high elf OP competitive list. BSB, Alarielle, a level 2, horde of White Lions, couple of Great Eagles, and the minimum core. You just run forward with an unkillable. Any wounds you do get, do suffer, probably come back to life with the regeneration. You do any wounds to characters, she's healing them back up with Lore of Life. It's so good. Now there are obviously a couple of counters, but like it's a solid unit. It's a solid way of playing High Elves, but it's also not a lot of fun for a lot of people to play against them that way because they give them everything on that one. So that's the High Elf book review. Again, I didn't do characters. Teclis isn't what he used to be. Tyrion isn't what he used to be. Eltharion isn't what he used to be. But they're all cool centerpiece models. And do you guys actually want to see more of these Warhammer Fantasy Battles Army book reviews? Let me know. I'll keep doing them. I'll see if anybody watches this. It was 40 minutes longer than I expected it to be. Thanks for watching.